lovely people, and welcome back to my channel. The first thing I wanted to do is come on and thank you all so much for subscribing to my channel. Last week I finally hit 1,000 subscribers. Yes, I know in YouTube land 1k subscribers means absolutely nothing because you are so minuscule that you're literally invisible, but it means a lot to me because I don't really put much effort into my channel, as you guys know. It's like one of the lowest priorities in my life. So for me to hit 1k subscribers is almost shocking because I never even thought that I would hit 100 subscribers. So with that being said, I just wanted to quickly say thank you so much. I hope that we can continue to be friends. I hope I'm going to make many more friends. And as I have said many times, the only reason I'm here is because you guys are there, you guys talk to me, we share our passion for makeup, and I hope that we can continue doing so in the future. Speaking of makeup, let's talk about the newest addition to my eyeshadow palette collection. So today I finally received my Natasha Denona bronze palette. I actually haven't opened it yet, she just arrived, and I wanted to actually show you the way it arrived packaged because I feel like that is so important, like the whole customer experience is very important. I ordered my bronze palette from Beautylish. For all of you European people who are wondering why did I buy this from Beautylish and not wait for other European retailers to release this, I realized that because on Beautylish you basically pay for the VAT immediately and you don't pay for import taxes, and everything is in dollars, meaning that it's much less in euros. Eventually it came up to the same price. I paid 69 euros for this palette, and I believe you're going to find it for the same price on Feel Unique, Selfridges, most probably Sephora. Sephora is not really an option for me because shipping from the French Sephora to the Netherlands costs an arm and a leg, so I only do it in very exceptional cases, for instance for Fenty products, because those are the only things I can only get on Sephora. Long story short, I ordered from Beautylish and the package finally arrived today. I've always had very good experiences with Beautylish. Well, always. I've like only ordered once from them, but a friend of mine ordered once before and I knew that they're really great with customer service. Something that I really like about Beautylish is that they always send me like little samples to try, and today they sent me their silicone-free priming moisturizer, excuse me. This is from Good Molecules, which I believe is the in-house brand of Beautylish for skincare. This looks more like a nourishing day cream, so I'm not really sure I'm going to really use it as a primer because I don't really use primers. But that being said, I really like receiving little things. So the package arrived like in a box with like a lot of like paper protectors. Pat McGrath, take notes and stop sending those disgusting plastic worms because they're like herpes, you can never get rid of them. As I was saying, it arrived beautifully cushioned between paper protective sheets, but it also came in this box. Look how well packaged. It just came in like the most secure possible way. So let's open it together, shall we? There she is. This is how the palette looks like. I'm sure you guys know this is one of her smaller format palettes, so everything is smaller compared to her original size. I do have one of her bigger palettes. I have the gold palette. I don't really have any other Natasha Denona palettes. I have the gold and the mini gold, and now I have the bronze palette. And this is how the palette looks like on the inside. I was really excited when she announced she was going to do a bronze palette because one of the most beautiful colors to wear in the summer when you have a tan is bronze. And I really dig the idea. I know this palette looks a little bit basic bitch and boring, but at the same time I feel like I like the idea of having the different undertones of bronze in one place. So I think I'm going to swatch the palette with you later and we're going to do some comparison swatches, most likely not with Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes because like I said, I only have the gold and I don't feel like there's much overlap between this and the gold palette, but I am probably going to bust out some Pat McGrath eyeshadow palettes if I feel like some of the shadows are similar to that. And for now, let's just dig in and do a look. As you guys can see, I've already done the rest of my face. If you were curious, what I'm wearing on my lips is the Flash 6 lip gloss from Pat McGrath, which is this beautiful bronzy color, which I feel like suits bronzy looks very well, and I love wearing it, especially in the summer when I do more like bronzy summer appropriate looks. Let me tell you, it's not bronzy kind of weather in the Netherlands. It's absolutely disgusting outside. It's cold, it's windy, it's rainy, it's gloomy. It looks like either fall or very early spring outside, so we have an error 404. The summer in the Netherlands is missing. I hesitate a little bit whether maybe I don't want to pull Kinky Sweat and do two different eye looks because I want to try different things. So I'm probably going to do that. I'm going to do one eye at a time, and on my first eye I want to do something that centers a little bit more around like the orangey type of shades. So I want to use this matte over here. I want to use Alloy, this gorgeous orange which has like the slightest greenish shift to it. I'm probably going to deepen with Magma because it looks like a beautiful rich reddish brown, and we're going to go from there. I'm going into the shade Sundown, the orange matte, with a fluffy blender kind of brush. I don't know why that was so difficult to say. Very nice shade, a very light orange with almost light pastel tones to it. It blends out very nicely, very easily, but I didn't really expect any less because I have mattes from Natasha Denona, like I said, in other palettes, so I do know her formula a little bit. And one of the things that I found exciting about this palette is that she has again those beautiful like duochromes and metallics, like the chunky metallics, and that's really something that I enjoy in her formula. To deepen my outer corner, I'm going to go into Suntan and either dip into Magma or the actual really deep brown shade, the deep dive shade, to deepen the outer corner. But I'm just going to start with Suntan, which is a slightly deeper, again, orange toned, like warm toned brown, and I'm going to work that here into the outer corner. Beautiful tone. This shade applied so nice and rich that it's almost a shame to go into another shade, I feel like. But I'm going to go because I'm curious. I don't want to really go too dark in the outer corner, so I'm not going to go into deep dive. I am going to go into Magma, the beautiful deeper reddish brown here, and just work that slightly here into the outer corner. You can definitely see that this gets much more definition now in the outer corner. Actually, this shade works so beautifully with the one we laid before, the shade Suntan. I'm going to just apply the slightest bit of Suntan over here to blend towards the center of the lid. I'm going to take my glitter glue. This is Pixie Epoxy from Ferini, and I'm going to take the tiniest bit and pop it onto my lid, because I prefer to apply chunky metallics over a glitter glue. You can also spritz your brush with Fix Plus if you prefer. And I'm going to apply this shade over here, the shade Hello, just using my finger. Oh, so pretty. This is beautiful. To deepen the outer corner a little bit and just to marry it with the matte in the outer corner a little bit better, I'm going to apply this shade, the shade True Copper. And I'm going to take that on my little pencil brush on which I had Magma. I'm just going to clean it off a little bit. Take the shade True Copper and just put it right here to marry a little bit better with those deeper matte shades. Oh, I think it makes a beautiful transition with Alloy. Alloy? I don't really know how to pronounce that, sorry. Now for my inner corner, I'm actually going to take another palette because I already noticed when other people were using this that there isn't really a true like inner corner highlight, or not at least on my skin tone. And because of that, and I really don't mind, I'm going to take my Clionadh highlighter palette over here, and I'm going to take this shade, the shade Circuit, which has a like yellow gold greenish type of duochrome, and just pop that here on the inner corner to complement the tones we have going on my lids. Once again, I'm going to clean off my little pencil brush, and I'm not going to make my life too difficult. I'm just going to go consequentially into Magma and Suntan in order to blend out the lower lash line. I'm going to take the shade True Bronze over here, which is one of the metallic shade. It feels like it has somewhat drier formula to it, so the payoff is a little bit more difficult to get. But I'm going to take my little brush, I'm going to spritz it with Fix Plus because I don't want the eyeshadow to be inside my eye instead of on my lower lash line. And I'm just going to apply it right here. Just to quickly finish off my lower lash line, I'm going to take this bronze Kiko eyeshadow stick and pop it into my waterline. So on my other eye, I'm still not going to go too crazy, but I really want to try this shade over here, the shade Silk, because it looks absolutely beautiful. But I'm going to do something maybe a little bit more like neutral in terms of like crease work. So I'm going to first go into this shade over here, which is a very light neutral beige. It's called Beach. And I'm going to work that into my crease and above. I'm going to take the shade Suntan again into my outer corner, and then I'm going to probably put the lightest bit of Deep Dive just because I'm curious about this shade and not because I really want to go very dramatic. I'm just curious. I really like this shade, the shade Suntan. It's so nice. It gives just a tiny bit of depth without being too dark. So if you want to do something a little bit more like day appropriate and you don't want to go over dramatic, you can definitely use this shade to deepen any of the looks you want to do with this palette. I love this shade. Like I said, just out of sheer curiosity, I want to try the shade Deep Dive, so I'm going to take the tiniest bit. This is also the only like cream to powder formula that she has in this palette, which is her special formula, and it's supposed to behave a bit more like a cream so that it's easier to apply and doesn't have too much fallout, so it's a bit more user-friendly for people who are afraid of deeper shades. I'm going to basically trace that here a bit more like a liner into my lash line and just take it out the slightest bit into my outer corner. It has these beautiful aubergine purple tones to it. Now on to the lid shades. I'm going to repeat the process once again. Take my Pixie Epoxy, take the lightest bit, apply onto my moving lid, taking the shade Silk over here again using my fingers, and I'm going to apply that right here onto the like more inner side of the lid, because maybe I want to use another one of the shimmers, metallics in the outer side of the lid. Wow, this shade is beautiful. I'm going to take this shade here, the shade Gloaming, using my pencil brush and just slightly work it here into the outer part of the eye. This shade has a little bit of like reddish tones to it, so it works very nicely with the deep matte shade. Once again, I'm going to take that same shade from my Clionadh Cosmetics palette, this shade here, Circuit, and pop that into my inner corner because I just don't think any of the shades from the bronze palette are going to do much in terms of brightening my inner corners. And then using a very precise smudger brush, I'm going to go into the shape Deep Dive again and apply that right here to connect with the outer corner, but without really taking it too far. I have very small eyes and it will close off my eyes significantly if I take it too far. And to complete the look, I'm once again going to take this shade here, the shade True Bronze, on my little smudger brush. I'm once again going to spritz with Fix Plus because I don't want the shade to drip everywhere, and just press it into the inner part of the lower lash line. Since this look took quite a smoky turn, I'm going to complete the waterline with this Kiko eyeshadow stick in the number 04, which is a somewhat deeper brown. Alright, here is a close-up of the orange eye look. Let's see if I can do a close-up of the like more neutral bronze look with the Deep Dive shade in the outer corner. I love how both of these looks turned out. I know that for a lot of people this seems like a really like boring palette without much to offer, but honestly I feel like you get like these like subtle differences in the undertones, and I think that's how she intended it to be. You get the more neutral bronzes, the more orange bronzes, the more like red coppery bronzes, and I think that's wonderful to have in one palette all together so that you can play with the different undertones. To me this is a little bit like an upgraded luxurious version of the Naked Heat palette, because if I think of something that's like summery and like more bronzy orangey, I immediately think of the Naked Heat palette, but at this point that palette is so dated, and this is like the upgraded, better, luxurious version of it, and I really love it. I love both looks that I created, and I feel like for shades that are so simple in a way in terms of like their undertones, you still get so much complexity and so much depth. I don't really know if there's much more to say in terms of like first impressions, so I'm going to leave it at that. And now I'm going to proceed with swatching the eyeshadows. I'm probably going to do more looks with this eyeshadow palette for you, because there's definitely eyeshadows that I really wanted to use, but I just only have 2 eyeballs. So I'm going to swatch the shades in this direction, going from my right to my left, and then just proceed in this order. The first shade we have here is the shade True Bronze. It is a beautiful orange, like coppery leaning bronze shade, somewhat deeper in tone. Then we have what's probably one of my favorite eyeshadows in this palette, is the matte shade Suntan, which is gorgeous. It has this beautiful undertones to it. It gives just enough depth if you don't want to go too crazy with your daytime looks. I often seek shades like this and I often don't find them, and I love this shade. I love that I don't have to go into a deeper shade to give more dimension to my look. Then we have the orange matte shade Sundown, which is also really beautiful. Not so special in terms of like color, because orange mattes have been done to death at this point, but still a very beautiful shade without being too orange. Just leans enough orange without being too orange. Then we have the deep mahogany purpley deep brown shade, which is called Deep Dive. Gorgeous formula, such a pleasure to work with. Then we have a shade that I'm actually very curious to use on my lids eventually. This is the shade Rhodium, which is a very interesting lavender purple with like blue overlay. This shade actually swatches a little bit deeper than it looks in the pan. I'm actually very curious to use it on my lids. Then we go on to the second row, where we have the shade Magma, which is a gorgeous like red leaning brown matte. Beautiful shade. Again, another shade which gives you depth and dimension without being overly dark. Then we have the shade High Degree, which is a beautiful like bronzy red, like a red with a bronze duochrome. I actually think I may have a dupe for this shade, like almost a dead-on dupe from Luxie Beauty. Then we go on with the shade Alloy, which is the shade that I used on my eye, on one of my eyes, which is the gorgeous metallic orange with slight like greenish tones to it without being like very duochrome. It's not too duochrome, but it has just a little bit of that hint of green to make it a bit more special. Moving on to the shade Ridge, which is a mustardy orange brown, a very interesting undertone, and I'm sure it's very different from the mustard we have in the gold palette. Moving on to the shade True Bronze, which is one of the beautiful sparkly metallic shades. It has like slight orange neutral tones to it, and it has a beautiful shine, as you can see. Alright, last row we have the shade Gloaming, which is a beautiful like very deep red bronze with what looks like a bronze sheen to it. It's really pretty. It's a very interesting shade. I don't think I've ever seen a shade like this in an eyeshadow palette. Then we proceed with like the more neutral pink leaning bronze, which is the shade Palladium. Another gorgeous shade. That comes a shade that I'm very curious to compare to Pat McGrath shade. This is the shade Bliss, which is a gorgeous coral pink with what looks like a greenish like gold duochrome to it. Then we have the shade Silk, which, as you guys know, I used on one of my lids. A gorgeous metallic shade, very beautiful. And last but not least, we have the shade Beach, which is a very soft, neutral, beige matte shadow. Here you have the whole bronze palette, you guys. So first things first, I'm opening my gold palette over here just to see whether I see some similarities. To me these are very different palettes. The gold palette almost leans a little bit too cool to be compared to the bronze, but I'm sure that people are probably curious whether Ridge, the shade from the more mustardy shade from the bronze palette, looks anything like this shade over here, which is called, I think it's called Dijon. With this one over here, like the more neutral bronze, gold might be similar to one of the shades in the bronze palette, but yeah, for the rest maybe some of these mattes might be similar. So let's start with the matte eyeshadows. So we have the shade Ridge over here from the bronze palette, and next to it I'm going to swatch Dijon from the gold palette, which is like an altogether completely different shade. This has much more yellow mustard, whereas this one is much more orange brown mustard. Then I want to compare the shade Beach, the more neutral matte, to the two mattes in the gold palette. We have like two sort of brownie mattes in there that look similar, but still very different shades actually. Now that I compare this shade to the two from the gold palette, this has much peachier tones compared to the ones in the bronze palette. The ones in the gold palette. The ones in the gold palette lean either more like neutral cool or neutral warm, but this is definitely much more peachy. And let's swatch that bronzy gold shade from the gold palette. So this is gold palette up against True Bronze, because I feel like that's the only shade that looks similar to it in tone. And again you can see this leans much warmer compared to the shade in the gold palette. I very quickly want to mention the Subculture palette, because there are two eyeshadows in here, these two, which remind me of shades from the bronze palette. So this is the shade New Wave, which I'm going to swatch next to the orange matte shade, just because I'm curious. Okay, so we have the shade Sundown from the bronze palette, and here we have New Wave from Subculture. They are similar in the sense that they're both oranges, but you can definitely see the one in the bronze palette leans much more peachy, whereas the one in the Subculture is much more of a true orange shade. And then I want to swatch the shade Adorn, which is from the Subculture palette, next to the shade True Bronze. So this is, let's start with the bronze again. So this is True Bronze from the bronze palette, and this is Adorn from Subculture. Again, huge difference. This is much more cool, not cool tone, but like neutral tone, and this is again much warmer. Now before we go on to comparisons with Pat McGrath eyeshadows, I just wanted to take out a little bit of my singles, specifically the singles that I have from Luxie Beauty, to compare up against shades from the bronze palette. The first one I want to compare to is the shade Firefly, which, like I said, looks like a dead-on dupe to me, to the shade, what's this called? High Degree. It's also like a bronzy red duochrome, so let's swatch them. Okay, swatching Firefly first, and here we have High Degree. They are similar, but the shade High Degree is much deeper and much more like brown red, whereas the Luxie shade actually has a bit more almost like pinky red tones to it, and the shift, the bronze shift, is equally strong in both of them. They're both beautiful. I don't actually know whether any of the shades that I'm going to show you from Luxie Beauty still exist, because Luxie Beauty has been like radio silent for a long time. I haven't been on their website, I have no idea what's going on with them, so unfortunately I won't be able to guarantee that any of the shades from Luxie that I'm comparing to actually still exist. Next I want to take this shade from Luxie, which is the shade Mirage, and that shade reminds me a little bit of Alloy from the bronze palette and True Bronze. So let's see. This is the shade from Luxie. This shade is really difficult to work with. It's actually supposed to be a duochrome for VR Nectar from the Sublime palette from Pat McGrath, but I figured let's just swatch it next to Alloy and True Bronze from the bronze palette. Yeah, super different. This one really does lean a bit more like peachy pink with a golden green duochrome, whereas these two are like super different. Do I have anything else from Luxie which looks similar? Okay, let's watch this shade, which is a beautiful like neutral leaning bronzy shade. This is the shade Penny Lane, and I think this reminds me a little bit of the shade Palladium in the bronze palette. So we have Luxie Penny Lane, and here we have Palladium from the bronze palette. Palladium is definitely deeper, but they're both like more like pink leaning bronzy browns. Let's swatch this shade. This is one of my favorite shades from Makeup Geek. It's a foiled eyeshadow and it's in the shade Grandstand. And I think I want to swatch this next to Palladium as well, because I think it also reminds me a little bit of Palladium. Definitely much more similar to the Luxie shade than it actually is to the Palladium shade from the bronze palette. Speaking of Makeup Geek, we might want to swatch the shade Chickadee, which is an orange matte shade, and compare that to Sundown. So here we have the Makeup Geek shade and here we have Sundown. Okay, those are similar-ish. Here we have the shade Untamed from Makeup Geek, and here we have Alloy from the bronze palette. They are similar in the sense that they have this like slight like green tone to them, like a slight green duochrome, but Untamed is much more orange, whereas this is much more like bronzy peach. I still love Untamed, highly recommend it. Alright, the first palette I want to pull out from Pat McGrath to compare with is this one. This is the shade. This is Divine Rose, and I want to compare this shade over here, the shade VR Rose Venus, with the shade Bliss from... oh yeah, they're very, very different shades actually. So here you have Bliss from Natasha Denona. Like I said, it has a very strong like coral pink base with a golden green duochrome to it. And here we have VR Rose Venus from Pat McGrath. Wow, they're actually very different. So the Rose Venus shade has much more like cooler pink base to it. This is much more like coral, almost red, and this has a much more golden duochrome compared to this, which is much more green. So I think the only palette that sort of reminds me of the bronze palette is of course the Bronze Ambition from Pat McGrath. So let's open up Bronze Ambition. And I don't feel like there is much to compare there, but let's just go ahead for the heck of it. So first things first, I think we need to compare the actual bronze shade in here to the shade True Bronze from the Natasha Denona palette. So this is True Bronze from the Natasha Denona bronze palette, and here we have whatever this shade is called, the bronze in Bronze Seduction. Wow, they are super different. This is much deeper in tone and a bit more neutral compared to the shade from Natasha Denona. The only other shade that I see that's somewhat similar is the Red Metallic shade, but once again I'm convinced that they're probably going to be very different from each other. So here we have the Metallic Red from Natasha Denona, and here we have the Metallic Red from Pat McGrath. You can see the Pat McGrath one is much brighter, much lighter in tone, whereas, like I said, the one from Natasha Denona almost leans a little bit like a brown red. Now the last eyeshadow palette from Pat McGrath I want to open is the Sublime, and I'm curious whether the bronze in there looks anything like any of the shades in the bronze palette. Perhaps it does. So I want to swatch this shade over here, the shade Bronze 005, I want to call it that. Yeah, it's Bronze 005 is actually one of her special shades, and I want to compare that to Alloy and True Bronze, because I feel like they're the only ones that kind of look similar. So here we have Alloy from Natasha Denona, True Bronze from Natasha Denona, and here we have Bronze 005. Okay, Bronze 005 is definitely much deeper, but it does remind me a little bit of the shade Alloy. still very different. Okay guys, this probably turned out to be a very long video. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, recommendations or any wishes to see with this palette, let me know in the comment section below. I would be more than happy to oblige. Definitely want to revisit this eyeshadow palette to try the metallic shades that I didn't get to try yet, especially that very interesting purple shade. So let's wrap this up because it's going to probably be a very long video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content and if you would like to see more of my face, and until next time I will see you in my next video. Bye!